8 discoveries. 8 moments in human history where someone did something for the first time that changed every single thing that came after it. Not war, not conquest, not power. Discovery. The specific moment when a human being looked at the world around them and did something with it that had never been done before. And the world was never the same again. This is every one of those moments explained. Discovery 1. Fire. In December 2025, a team of researchers from the British Museum, University College London, and the Natural History Museum published findings in the journal Nature that stopped the scientific world. At a site called East Farm near the village of Barnham in Suffolk, England, a former clay pit that had been under excavation since 2013, they found something nobody expected: a patch of heated clay. Flint hand axes shattered and cracked from exposure to extreme heat, and 2 small fragments of iron pyrite, a mineral that produces sparks when struck against flint to ignite tinder. Together, these objects represent a hearth, not a natural fire, a made fire, deliberately created, deliberately maintained at least 400,000 years ago. Nick Ashton, the British Museum archaeologist who led the study, said, "For me, personally, it's the most exciting discovery of my 40-year career, and the reason is what it does to the timeline. The previous oldest evidence of deliberate fire-making was from northern France 50,000 years ago. This discovery pushed that date back by 350,000 years. The human relationship with fire is not just ancient. It is far, far older than anyone believed. But what does fire actually mean? Not warmth, not light, not even protection from predators, though it provided all of those things. Fire means cooking, and cooking means something that transformed the human body from the inside out. A raw calorie and a cooked calorie are not the same thing. Cooking breaks down cell walls, denatures proteins, makes nutrients available that raw food locks away. The caloric return from cooked food is approximately double that of raw food, which means smaller guts. You need less digestive system when your food arrives pre-processed. And smaller guts meant more energy available for the brain. The expansion of the human brain over the last million years is connected, perhaps causally, to the moment someone decided to put food near a flame. The iron pyrite fragments at Barnham are small enough to fit in your palm. They are 400,000 years old. They are the fingerprints of the moment that made you who you are. Discovery 2. TOLF. Go back further. 3.3 million years ago, on the shores of Lake Turkana in what is now Kenya, someone picked up a stone and struck it against another stone at a precise angle. The result was a sharp edge. And that sharp edge, documented at the site called Lomekwi 3, published in Nature in 2015 by a team from Stony Brook University and the George Washington University, is the oldest known tool ever made. It predates the genus Homo entirely. It was made by an earlier hominin, possibly Australopithecus, and it demonstrates something that had never existed before in the history of life on Earth. An organism that did not just use what the world provided, but deliberately modified the world to suit its needs. The jump from the Lomekwi tools to the Acheulean Handaxe, the carefully shaped symmetrical biface tool that appears across Africa, Asia, and Europe from approximately 1.7 million years ago, required something that the stone itself cannot contain: a mental template. The concept of what the tool should look like before it exists. You cannot make an Acheulean Handaxe without being able to hold in your mind the image of a symmetrical form, and then work toward it across multiple steps, removing material that is not part of the final shape while keeping the shape in your imagination throughout. This is planning. This is abstraction. This is the beginning of the kind of thinking that eventually produced everything you have ever read, built, or imagined. The oldest tool is 3.3 million years old. The device you are using to watch this video is its direct descendant. Discovery 3. Language. Nobody knows exactly when humans first spoke. Language leaves no direct fossil record. It lives in air and disappears. But it leaves indirect traces. The hyoid bone, the small U-shaped bone in the throat that anchors the muscles controlling speech, appears in Neanderthals in a form almost identical to the modern human hyoid. A Neanderthal hyoid found at Kebara cave in Israel, dated to approximately 60,000 years ago, and studied by researchers at the Hebrew University, is biomechanically indistinguishable from a modern human hyoid. The Neanderthal throat could produce the sounds of language. The FOXP2 gene, sometimes called the language gene, though this is an oversimplification, is associated in modern humans with the fine motor control of the lips, tongue, and larynx required for speech. Analysis of ancient DNA from Neanderthal remains at the El Cedron site in Spain, published in Nature in 2007 by Johannes Kraus and colleagues from the Max Planck Institute, found that Neanderthals carried the same modern human variants of FOXP2. The biological infrastructure for language was in place at least 60,000 years ago, and possibly much longer. But what did the first language actually do? Not poetry, not philosophy, not literature. The first language told someone where the food was, or that the water hole had dried up, or that the animal tracks went in this direction. Language was a survival technology before it was anything else. It was the ability to transmit information that someone else had personally experienced to someone who had not. You did not have to find the water hole yourself if someone who had already found it could tell you where it was. Language moved knowledge faster than any individual could accumulate it, and the group that had language had an advantage over every group that did not. Everything that has ever been written, spoken, sung, taught, or transmitted between human beings began with that first practical sentence about where the food was. Discovery 4R. In March 2026, researchers announced the discovery of a 67,800-year-old hand stencil in a cave on the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia. A small hand, possibly a woman or adolescent based on its dimensions, pressed against a cave wall. Pigment blown around it. A shape preserved in stone for 67,800 years. It is the oldest known deliberate mark made by a human being. Not a tool, not food, not shelter. A mark, a sign, a presence. The researcher who led the study described the slightly curled fingers as claw-like, suggesting the position was deliberate, meaningful, not casual. Someone made a specific choice about how to hold their hand. Someone wanted to leave a specific image. Someone had a creative intention. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, researchers from the University of Bergen found abstract geometric patterns engraved on ochre pieces dated to approximately 75,000 years ago, published in Nature in 2018. These crosshatch patterns have no practical survival function. They are not maps. They are not tools. They are designs, the first evidence of purely symbolic thinking, of making something because it meant something rather than because it did something. Art is the evidence that the human brain had developed something that no previous organism possessed, the capacity to create meaning, to make something that points beyond itself to something else, a symbol, a representation, a feeling given a form. Every painting ever made, every song ever written, every story ever told is the descendant of a 67,800-year-old hand pressed against a cave wall on an island in Indonesia. Discovery 5. Agriculture. Around 12,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, the arc of land stretching from the Nile Valley through the Levant into Mesopotamia, something began that had never happened before in the history of life. Plants were cultivated, not gathered, not harvested from wherever they happened to grow. Deliberately planted, tended, selected, and reproduced. The specific sites: Ohalo II on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, where researchers from the Hebrew University found evidence of proto-agricultural plant management dated to approximately 23,000 years ago. The Natufian culture of the Levant, extensively documented by researchers at the Weizmann Institute in Harvard, shows evidence of systematic wild grain harvesting transitioning toward deliberate cultivation between 15,000 and 11,500 years ago. The first confirmed domesticated wheat and barley appear in the archaeological record of southeastern Turkey and northern Syria, approximately 10,500 years ago. Before agriculture, the upper limit on human group size was determined by what the local environment could produce naturally. A hunter-gatherer group could not exceed the number of people a given territory could feed through foraging alone, typically between 20 and 150 people. Agriculture removed that ceiling. You could now produce far more food in a far smaller area than any natural ecosystem provided. which meant groups could be large, which meant specialization. Not everyone had to hunt and gather. Some people could make pots. Some people could make tools. Some people could keep records. Writing, which appears in Mesopotamia approximately 5,400 years ago, is a direct product of agriculture. It was invented not for literature but for accounting, to keep track of surplus grain. The plate of food you had today exists because someone in the Fertile Crescent 12,000 years ago decided not to just eat the seeds, but to plant them. Discovery 6, the wheel. The wheel is approximately 5,500 years old. The oldest known wheel was found in Slovenia in 2002. The Ljubljana Marshes wheel, dated by researchers from the Institute of Archaeology in Ljubljana to approximately 5,150 years ago. Made of ash wood with an oak axle, it is not a simple disc. It is a precision-engineered object that requires the axle and the wheel to be separate pieces, the wheel rotating around a fixed axle, which is a conceptually more sophisticated design than a rolling log. Someone understood rotational mechanics. Someone understood bearing surfaces. The specific cognitive leap required to move from observing that round things roll to engineering a wheel-and-axle system that translates rotational motion into linear motion is not obvious. It required abstract spatial reasoning and deliberate engineering experimentation. Before the wheel, everything moved at the speed of human legs or animal legs. After the wheel, goods could travel faster, further, and in greater quantity than any pack animal could carry. Trade routes expanded. Cities grew. The specific moment someone looked at a rolling log and thought about how to formalize and control that rolling, and then spent weeks or months engineering the result, is the moment that made every road, every vehicle, every engine, every machine in human history possible. Discovery 7, medicine. We have already covered the plant evidence in detail in a previous Stanvex video. But there is one discovery so specific and so extraordinary that it belongs here. In 2024, ANU researchers confirmed what they described as the earliest known surgical amputation, a lower leg deliberately removed from a young individual approximately 31,000 years ago in a cave in Borneo. The bone shows clean cut marks consistent with a surgical instrument. The bone had healed. The individual lived for years after the surgery. Someone performed an operation. The patient survived and then continued living in a world that required mobility, cooperation, and care from the people around them. 31,000 years ago, surgery, and a patient who lived. This is not the beginning of ancient medicine. The Shanidar Cave medicinal plant evidence goes back 60,000 years, but it is the most dramatic single demonstration that what ancient humans were doing with their knowledge of the body was not superstition. It was skill. It was precision. It was care applied with enough technique that a person with a surgically removed lower leg survived for years in a world where survival was already extraordinarily demanding for the fully able body. Discovery 8, writing. Around 5,400 years ago in the city of Uruk in Mesopotamia, in what is now southern Iraq, someone pressed a reed stylus into wet clay and made the marks that would become writing. The earliest confirmed writing is Sumerian cuneiform, documented and studied extensively by researchers at the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago. It was not invented to tell stories. It was invented to count things, to record how many jars of grain had been deposited, how many sheep were in a flock, how many workers had received their rations. The first texts are receipts and inventory, but receipts and inventories required something profound: the ability to represent a word or concept as a mark on a surface that someone else could read and understand without the original speaker being present. Writing separated knowledge from the person who held it. Before writing, when the healer died, their knowledge died with them, unless they had taught someone else. Writing meant that knowledge could outlive its holder. The Ebers Papyrus, the 3,600-year-old Egyptian medical text with over 700 plant-based medical formulas, exists because writing existed. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the 4,000-year-old story of humanity's first named literary hero, exists because writing existed. Every book ever written, every law ever recorded, every scientific paper ever published, Every piece of knowledge that has survived beyond the lifetime of the person who held it. All of it traces back to someone in Uruk, pressing a reed into clay to keep track of grain. 8 discoveries. Fire that the British Museum just pushed back 350,000 years further than anyone knew. Tools that predate our genus. Language written into bones and genes. Art that began with a hand on a cave wall 67,800 years ago. Agriculture that removed the ceiling on human civilization. The wheel that moved the world. Medicine that operated on a patient 31,000 years ago and let them live. Writing that made knowledge immortal. None of these were invented by geniuses in a single moment of inspiration. Every single one of them was the product of accumulated observation, accumulated failure, accumulated transmission of knowledge from one person to the next across generations. Someone tried something. It worked. They told the next person. The next person refined it. Their children refined it further. This is how everything you know came to be. The person who first struck iron pyrite against Flint at Barnham 400,000 years ago had no idea that their small fire would still be burning. In every home on Earth, in every phone, in every engine, in every electrical system, in every source of light and heat that human beings currently possess. They just wanted to stay warm, and they changed everything.